Concerning the economically unstable times that we live in, it is a great idea to convert some of your savings into real money. Now, there is a big difference between real money and what we call money, which is actually just currency. So our dollar is currency, which fluctuates. Real money, on the other hand, like silver, for example, is a store of value over time. The best way to think of it is like this. If you had saved $1,000 in cash back in the late 60s, the late 1960s, that $1,000 would still be $1,000 technically, but it would buy you significantly less today due to inflation. Now, if you had saved that same $1,000 in silver back in the 1960s, today it would be worth around $28,000. So one of the best ways to protect your purchasing power is in real money, more specifically, silver. You can buy and have the metal shipped discreetly to your door, and what most people don't know is that you can actually convert your IRA or even a 401k into physical silver rather than having all of your life savings tied up in the paper fiat system, which is subject to hyperinflation. Go to dailyrenegade.com and click on the Cornerstone Assets Metals banner. This is the only company that I personally trust with this kind of thing. Click on that and sign up to get your free silver report today. One of the financial experts will speak with you to find out the best way to protect your savings going forward in these uncertain times. Hello and welcome to the Sharpening Report. I am your host, Josh Peck. If you haven't had a chance yet, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you won't miss out on what we have coming up down the line. Today we are blessed to have on the show L.A. Marzulli, a renowned filmmaker and author whose groundbreaking work has consistently delved into the intricate tapestry of science, history, and the Bible. His latest film explores the mystery of out-of-place artifacts, shedding light on ancient relics that defy conventional historical timelines. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, L.A. Great to have you back. How are you doing?
I really liked the introduction, a tapestry. That was like really good. Well written. Very kudos to you, sir. And thank you for the lovely introduction. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's inspired by a lot of your writing, because you always have these really captivating and engaging introductions in your movie, and I kind of wanted to mirror some of that. Because in this movie, you have one of those too. And let's jump right into it. For those not familiar, this film is actually the 8th entry in your On the Trail of the Nephilim series. Can you tell us about this series as a whole? And do people have to watch the other 7 to understand the 8th? Tell us about the On the Trail of the Nephilim series.
Basically, each film is a standalone film. I mean, you could jump in on number 5 or number 7 or 1. I mean, whatever you wanted to do. I would suggest watching them sequentially, but you don't have to do that. But I mean, you know, it's like we're definitely building something. I'll tell you just a brief story. Years ago, probably 12, 13, 14 years ago, I was headed up to a conference in Ohio, and my good friend and battle buddy, the late Russ Dizdar, calls me up and he goes, "Hey, LA, do you know where you're going?" I go, "Yeah, I'm going to Newark, Ohio." And he just starts laughing. You had to know Russ. When he started laughing with that little mysterious chuckle that he had, and I really miss him, you knew something was up. And sure enough, the chuckle was there. And he goes, "Are you by your computer?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, Google Fritz Zimmerman, Nephilim Chronicles, Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley." And I went, "What?" It's like, "What are you talking about?" So I Google it. There's Fritz's book. I'm completely blown away. I order the hard copy. I also pay for the PDF because the next morning I got a 5-hour flight to Ohio. And I basically read the PDF on the plane in 5 hours.
Wow.
I took a speed reading course, 60 years ago, and I still use it from time to time because it works. But you've got to be really focused when you use it. And so anyway, I'm reading this thing, and I'm at the conference, and my driver's taking me from. I sound so stuck up. Yes, my driver was taking me from where the fondue was to the palace. Thank you. But But the driver was taking me from the hotel to the conference, and so I go, "Hey, where's this Great Circle Mound? That is it? Is it? Are we close to it?" He goes, "Oh yeah, we passed it every day. It's about a mile up the road on your right hand side." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you're going to pass it about a mile." So I'm like this, looking out the window. Sure enough, Newark Earthworks, and there's the sign. And I look at him and I go, wow, tomorrow the conference ends at noon. I can pack up. How about instead of taking me back to the hotel, around 3 o'clock or whatever, come and get me and just drop me off here. Let me spend a couple hours. He goes, sure. So it's the following day, conference ends. I pack up, 3 o'clock. He drops me off. There's nobody in the parking lot. Not a car, not a soul around. I've got the entire place to myself. There's a 4-foot wide asphalt path that goes still there, that goes from the parking lot up to the entrance of the mount. And I'm walking up this thing and I'm looking around. To my left are the earthworks, and they're 20, 25, 30 feet tall. To my right, there's other smaller earthworks. There's a little museum in the distance, which of course is closed. And I get up to the top and I look around, and there's the gateway. There's the gateway. And I walk towards the gateway, and now I'm standing at the entrance of the Circle Mound, and I'm looking at this huge bank of earth, which encircles, I think it's maybe 40 acres
Wow.
of land. It's unbelievable. And I'm standing there frozen in time, and I'm hyperventilating. I'm doing, and my eyes are darting around. And I realize the Holy Spirit kind of taps me on the shoulder, and I get one of those moments, and he goes, "You're looking at the rest of your life."
Wow.
And yeah, and I just kind of went, whoa. And that was it. That started the entire On the Trail series. I mean, that was it. I had no idea that all this existed. And from there you get going to Peru, going to Europe, going all over the United States, going to Israel, going island hopping in the Mediterranean. I mean, I've been kind of all over England, France, Portugal, Spain, the Balearics, looking and filming in all these out of where Sardinia, Gozo, all over the place. And it's just amazing. From that, I coined an expression, Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology, because that's what this is. So that's the nexus of this whole thing was Russ, Fritz, and then Fritz and I met finally. And I mean, Fritz has been to 700 mound sites. And in fact, right now, because it's November, it's Beltane is what it is. And so Fritz is in Newark, Ohio, with a drone, trying to see where the sunset comes down tomorrow, and that's what he's going to look at, because we think it's. And I can't divulge too much information because it's in a future film, but we've discovered some stuff about these earthworks which nobody else has figured out. So, and this is Fritz's research. So he's there now, checking some stuff out. So it's pretty interesting.
Wow. That is so cool. And going to all these places and seeing all these things, these out of place artifacts that we're going to be talking about, do you think these all have a common source? Like, for those, actually, let's start here. For those who haven't heard the term, what is an out of place artifact? And then how do you define it? Like, what do all these things have in common?
Well, if a person goes to a museum, let's say the big museum up in Chicago, or just wherever, and you go to, let's say, the Native American area, so all of a sudden you're looking at a very large spear point, and underneath that it will say, Native Americans use these large spear points for ceremonial purposes to define the status of a chief. Well, how do you know that? Or you're down in Peru and you see a tapestry, right? And all around the tapestry are 5-fingered hands, except the one in the middle has a 6-finger. And you go to the docent who's taking you around the museum. Excuse me, why does the tapestry have a 6-fingered hand? And the guy makes some stupid joke like maybe he had too much cerveza. And the other people on the tour kind of look nervously at me to see what I'm going to do because they know I'm going to say something. And I challenged the guy. I said, you don't know that. Another out of place artifact, since we're down in Peru, would be the very large walls at Sacsayhuaman. Sacsayhuaman is a very ancient site. The stones there are 60, 80, 100 tons each. They are put in place with absolute precision. They are polygonal in shape. And they are made of andesite, and you cannot cut andesite stone with a copper chisel. You just can't do it. So, quit lying to us, telling us that the Inca were master stone builders when they definitely were not. And it's just it's such a bald-faced lie. It's really embarrassing. Let me see if I can pull up something. Of course, I'm already cheating by not going to the. Well, here, let's look at Solstani.
Yeah.
What's this? This is on the border of Lake Titicaca in Bolivia and Peru, and look at the precision of the stonework here. If you were going to make something really hard to make,
Wow.
this is what you make. This is out of basalt rock, and it's conical, which means that for every inch that you go up, the radius is changing. So how and there's no mortar. Look at the way the thing is cut and put in place. So what are these doing there? And of course, we have the Inca who's imitating it, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. This is from the On the Trail of the Nephilim. That's what the Inca can do right there.
Yeah. No comparison.
Yeah, none at all. But the archaeologists insist that the Inca did these because they have to go there. Because if they don't go there, then they've got to go to something else, which is outside their paradigm, and they just won't do it. They will not go there. And so you've got this ridiculous false narrative, which permeates the scientific community and academia. I mean, it just does. It's absolutely everywhere. Let me see if I'm trying to find Sacsayhuaman here, and I know it's up here coming up soon. It's always good to go to the index because that way you can turn right to it. But I'm not doing that. So, here we go. So this is andesite stone.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You want to try to make that? You want to try to make that?
Wouldn't even know where to begin.
So we're told that the Inca did this. Let me just show you what Sacsayhuaman looks like. So this is it. This is the centerfold of the book.
Wow. That's amazing.
And when you come close, this is what you got.
It's amazing how
and these stones. Every stone is different.
Yeah, every stone is irregular, and they somehow fit perfectly into place.
Yeah, it's on the Trail of the Nephilim. So I mean, this is like groundbreaking stuff, and we really broke the story. It's been there forever, but we brought it to the attention of the Christian community. We actually made a film. So irreverent, but late Richard Shaw and I went down there, and we created the film, The Secret Cosmic War, number 6 in our Watchers series. So these are out of place artifacts. That wall, the entire wall, is an out of place artifact because if you can't do it with a copper chisel, then you can't do it with a copper chisel. And we show in the film a researcher with a copper chisel, brand new copper chisel. He holds it up, and that thing's really sharp. Block of andesite stone. Bam, 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 bam. Then she shows the chisel. The chisel is completely blunt. The andesite stone doesn't have a mark on it. So if you can't do it, then you can't do it. So now who's the pseudo-archaeologist? Because that's what they call us. Oh, Mr. Pseudo-archaeology. No, you're the pseudo-archaeologist because you're just making the stuff up because it doesn't fit your paradigm. And that's another one would be a 28-pound axe head. And what you'll hear is, oh, the 28-pound axe head, that was ceremonial, eh? This was to denote the status of a great chief. Well, how do you know that? Where's the oral tradition from any Native American tribe that says that?
Yeah.
Making this stuff up. because everything's ceremonial. That's how they couch it in this huge umbrella of ceremonial.
It's the ceremony
So,
of,
in my opinion,
it's the ceremony of the gaps.
exactly. I mean, we're joking around here, but you know what? When I was at Machu Picchu the last time, that sounds so snobby, doesn't it? Oh yes, I was in my private Learjet, and I landed near, and of course we took our own bus to the top because these might be with the riffraff. So, I mean, it's just, but we're, you know, so I'm at Machu Picchu. We're having fun today. I'm at Machu Picchu, and I'm listening. I have my group, and I'm lecturing, and there's a Inca tour guide, which is about 10 feet away, and he's really loud, and he's starting to become obnoxious, and he's really bothering me. So after I get done my spiel, and I go touch this rock, you are touching the fingerprints of a supernatural, and he's going on and on about the Inca were master stone builders, and I just say, excuse me, this is andesite stone, and the Inca only had copper chisels. How did they do this? Why wasn't it duplicated? Why do we see two types of building here? We see, and let me just show you that real quick, because in, at Sacsayhuaman, it's obvious, I mean, really obvious that there are two types of building, and I'll show you what it looks like. One is the pristine stonework that we see from the original builders at Sacsayhuaman. And the other is what I affectionately call Inca slop. Here's a really good example of it. Look through the doorway
Wow.
right here.
Yeah.
So you see the doorway, you see the original stones, and then you see right there Inca slop.
Yep.
So what you're looking at are head-sized boulders stacked together with mortar. And it becomes comical because these guys are sitting there going, well, they have no answer to it. Well, why are we seeing two types of building and the Inca slop is always above the original material? I mean, but that's what they're taught, and so that's what they just parrot what they're told to say. So, really, what we've got, in my opinion, I mean, I hate to be bagging against modern day archaeologists. I'm not like throwing down the gauntlet, but they'll call me and others of my ilk a pseudo archaeologist because how dare we, challenge the existing narrative? But see, I'm not part of the university system. I'm not part of the international museum system where artifacts are traded all around and there's a hierarchy and there's a pecking order. And in order to get funding, you've got to toe the line. I have independent funding. I have people that donate to our ministry. So we're free. We're free intellectually to go wherever we want to go. We can have a hypothesis. We can say, for instance, I'll just give you one hypothesis that we're actually working on. Is it possible that these ancient sites were deliberately closed down? And if so, by whom? That's a hypothesis. Because wherever I go, I hear the same thing. From Sardinia to Gilgal-Raphaim to Peru to Corral to the Hopewell in North America, all everywhere. That's the same story. Oh, and they couch it like this in this manner, that these sites were abandoned due to climate change. Wherever you go, that's what you hear.
Of course.
So it's always climate change.
Yep.
Yeah, it has to be climate change. So you will be fearful.
Yep.
It's climate change. Run for your life. The tentacles of climate change are coming for you. It's just like, what are you guys doing here? You're just making this stuff up. And so, having been to all these different sites, I hear the same thing over and over and over again, that the sites are abandoned. Well, wait a minute. It's like a perfect example, and I won't go there because it's in Turkey, but Göbekli Tepe. Why is this thing buried? But, I mean, that's a very dramatic example. But there's other examples, like Corral in Peru, which is the oldest city in the Americas. That was just abandoned. Teotihuacan was buried under earth. I mean, people go, that might be a pyramid over there, Bob. Yeah, it looks like a pyramid. What's a pyramid? I don't know, but that looks like one. And so was it a pyramid? Well, it is a pyramid. It's the largest pyramid in the world. The base is. It's larger than Giza, for crying out loud. It's not as tall as Giza, but the base is larger. It's a step pyramid, and that thing must have been amazing. So modern day archaeologists, and this is what I take umbrage with on some level. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but they'll call them the Teotihuacanos. So right off the bat, they have no idea who these people were and what they call themselves. So they make up a name, the Teotihuacanos. And then they're going to proceed to tell us all about it. Well, I mean, are you being disingenuous or what? You don't know. Look, when you go to Corral in Peru, it's 5,000 years old. We're looking at advanced geometry, knowledge of a solar precession, knowledge of the equinoxes, solstices, 18 and a half year lunar cycle, building techniques that weren't in place. There's no pre-existing culture. This whole thing rises up in toto, completely intact. It's like someone is showing up with a set of blueprints and go, this is what we're making and this is how you do it. But there's no pre-existing culture with, well, here's the pyramid and we almost got it right, but we didn't. Here's our second attempt at the pyramid, but we kind of blew it on this side, so we have to start over again. Not that way. Everything just rises up from, and then of course the site is completely abandoned. So it's my contention that something is going on here, and I've got some proof text for that theory or that hypothesis. It seems like if this is Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology, the Most High God allows it to happen for a period of time, and then he sends in the good guys. That's what I believe. But of course, that goes against the Darwinian paradigm. It goes against the modern day archaeologists, where there is no supernatural worldview. And we, as an archaeologist, they cannot insert the supernatural into what they're looking at. Now, they can insert peyote ceremonies or shamanistic ceremonies, the spiritual, but they can't really go to the supernatural, and certainly not the biblical prophetic narrative. That is anathema to them.
Yeah, and it's like you get these two sides where you got modern archaeology, which they have their own group think, but then on the way other end, you got like ancient aliens, where they will take any little thing they possibly can and say, see, it's aliens, no matter how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
That's what I really love about your work in On the Trail of the Nephilim, specific to this conversation, is it looks at the same thing and says, well, wait a minute, there is truth here, and it's been written about for thousands of years. We have it explained in the Bible. We know what this is. Genesis 6 explains this stuff, and it fits what we're actually witnessing with these out of place artifacts and how this stuff could have been done. Another thing, you go into some amazing detail on really all of the artifacts that you talk about, and there's several in the film. And what's surprising is that some of these will sound familiar to people that they won't even realize that it's an out of place artifact, and then others may not. But let's start with something familiar that many people might not actually realize is an out of place artifact that you cover in the very beginning of the film. What can you tell us about the obelisk in Rome, and why is this an out of place artifact?
Wherever I go, because of what the Lord has trained me, and look, I work with archaeologists. I'm not down. Mondo Gonzalez is a bona fide archaeologist. Heather Coons is an archaeologist. I work with two of them. I work with amateur archaeologists like Mark Hirschman. So, I mean, I've been on dig sites. I've learned how to use the trowel, how to sift and look for gnat poop out of pepper. I mean, I've done all that. Sit there for days on end, check, I got an arrowhead. And you go down to down in Peru, and where Brian Forrester took us, and everything is just littered. It's an archaeological mind free, because it's the whole place is one archaeological site. No one does anything. So I'm there in the Vatican, I guess 2019, 2018, and we're looking in Vatican Square, and I'm looking at the obelisk, and I'm kind of going like, something's wrong here, and I don't know what it is, but I'm just looking at this thing going, this doesn't fit. Something. What am I looking at here? I'm bothered by it. So I go back to our room, and which is about 8 blocks away, which is really kind of cool to be that close to the whole place. And I Google it, and I'm reading all about the Vatican obelisk. And first of all, Caesar Augustus took it from Heliopolis. around 30 AD, or BC rather, 30 BC. So Caesar Augustus takes it from Heliopolis, but no one knows where it comes from before it winds up in Heliopolis. But he finds it, it's red granite, he takes it, and this thing is 320 tons, 83 feet high. So, I mean, this is a Herculean task, but they do it. It's the Romans. They could do stuff like this. So they erect it. Caligula moves it decades later to kind of close to where it is now. But then in the 15th, 16th century, Pope Sixtus V decides, I'm going to move this thing. So it takes 900 men, 300 horses, depending on what you read. It's either 6 months or 3 months, could be longer. They've got ropes and towers and pulleys and horses and 900 guys and huge levers and all this nonsense, right? And it takes them like 6 months to move this thing a couple of hundred yards. And then they erect it. It just cracks me up. And then the Pope comes out and he does a rite of exorcism on it. Ugh. So why does the Pope feel necessary to do a rite of exorcism on the obelisk? Now, when you go and you look at this thing, the rite of exorcism is all around the base of it. An obelisk is something. Let me just show you what this, just for our readers here. So this is a crude obelisk here, like this, right? And something like this, okay? So this is an obelisk, and you will notice that it's wider at the bottom, and as it goes up, boy, am I a horrible drawer. He's a horrible artist, Bub. But every centimeter that you go up, everything is changing. Now, if you go online, there's archaeologists, well-meaning folk, who will show us how to cut granite with a copper saw. I get that. I totally get it. You can cut granite with a copper saw, and what you do is you're using sand in the cut. So you've got to make, you put the sand down, put some water down, and you're going like this with the copper saw, and you can cut granite. Okay, I'll cede that point to you. But to my point, can you create an obelisk? Can you create something that's shaped like this, which is changing? And how do you do this? I get it. You've got chalk lines, and you can start, cutting down one side like this, and you bring it down. I mean, I get intellectually how you can do this, but this thing is polished. I mean, it's 320 tons. Are we looking at Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology? In my opinion, it's exactly what we're looking at. Absolutely all day long, this is what we're looking at. And I think the artifact shows us that whoever was doing this in ancient Egypt, they did it because they were able to. They weren't sweating it. They weren't going like, how are we going to get this thing out of the quarry? When you go to, and I have never been to Egypt for obvious reasons, but I just won't set foot in a Muslim country. I just won't do it. I don't trust it. I've heard too many horror stories. More than likely, nothing would happen, but that's just my own take. I just won't do it. Sorry, guys. And I really want to go to Egypt and other places, but I just won't do it. So there's a place called the Osirium in Egypt where these huge granite and like tomb-like things are deep underground. And we see the same type of stonework that we see at Sacsayhuaman at the site in Egypt.
Wow.
And remember, most people who read our Bibles, we don't understand this. I wrote about this in the Cosmic Chess Match, or in Counter Move, How the Nephilim Returned After the Flood. I alluded to it in the Cosmic Chess Match, but I did sort of a semi-deep dive to it in Counter Move, How the Nephilim Returned After the Flood. When Moses and Aaron show up in Pharaoh's court, there's a full-blown occult paradigm in operation. It's there. It's the law of the land. Everybody travels in it. This is what we do. And I mean, it's there. And it's when Moses and Aaron throw down their staff, nobody blinks an eye. The thing turns into a serpent. Well, the Egyptian priests do it. Their thing turns into a serpent. The only difference is Moses' staff swallows up all the others. So the first three plagues are actually duplicated by the Egyptian magicians. Where's that power coming from? That's the dragon. So there's a full-blown occult paradigm in operation in ancient Egypt when Mo and Aaron show up. That's not taught. That's not talked about. Most pastors, unfortunately, I apologize for my throat. let me get a slurp
Yeah,
here.
no problem.
Most pastors won't touch that, but it's there, and it's the law. When I say the law, it is the law of the land. This is how they roll. This is how they operate. So that's already in. That's already there. Then it just goes away. The whole thing just goes away. But we see this played out with out of place artifacts. Wherever you go, there are large axe heads, large spearheads. There is stonework. There's megalithic construction, which makes no sense at all. There's building techniques, which, we kind of scratch our heads like Socks on. Why are you guys building with 80-ton stone? To be lost your mind? No, we do this because we can do this. We're not sweating it. So those are some ideas. So the Vatican obelisk is hidden in plain sight, and in my opinion, it's Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology.
Do you think for some of these things to be built, do you think that the ancient people of the past, whatever they were, Nephilim or otherwise, do you believe that they were using dark occult magic to create these things? And then if so, why don't we see that kind of thing today?
Well, in some ways we do, but this is fallen angel technology. So there's, in my opinion, there's an entity that's there, that's setting up shop and is allowed to set up shop. My proof text to that is when Jesus appears to Abraham with the two angels, and he sends the two angels up to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And he's had it up to here with Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a Nephilim stronghold. It's a Nephilim site. There's no doubt in my mind that's exactly what we're looking at. The angels who left their first estate, Jude, in similar ways, Sodom and Gomorrah. So he ties it linguistically, in my opinion, to the angels leaving their first estate, coming down, Genesis 3:15, mingling of the seed, Genesis 6, Nephilim were on there from those days and also afterwards. So, but then Jesus says something, the pre-incarnate Jesus says something really telling to Abraham. Your seed, I'm sorry, you will be out of your seed, all the nations will be blessed. All the nations on earth will be blessed. That's Messiah. So now someone is tapped out. And remember, at this point, I just think about it. There is no law. Just think about it. There is no law. There are no 12 tribes. There's just one guy, and he's 90 years old. He's 90 years old, and his wife is, 88 or 89. She's laughing because there's no way she's going to get pregnant. And the late Chuck Missler was the one who brought this to my attention, and I believe it. I think God did, and this is what I just love about it, because it's impossible. He waits till Abraham's 90. Sarah's roughly the same age, way past the age of having any making whoopee, as they say. I mean, it's just, it ain't going to happen, okay? No kids. So Sarah's cracking up. It's an impossible situation. Chuck used to say, and I agree with him, I think the Lord reversed the age. Because, why do I think that? Because in the biblical narrative, when Abraham and Sarah go down to Egypt, what happens? Pharaoh wants the 90-year-old babe in his harem.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants great granny in his harem? I don't think it's great granny at this point. I think the Lord has turned back the clock, as it were.
Oh, wow.
I just love stories.
Yeah.
I love stories like this,
I
right?
never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes no sense. Right. Sarah's 90 years old. It's like, I want granny over there, little baby. It's not. We're having way too much fun here, and you won't hear about that in church for sure. Right. But that's what I think happened. And Chuck, hats off to Chuck Missler because I first heard it from Chuck. So I think that's what happened. Sarah gets pregnant. From her, all the nations of the earth eventually are blessed. So, the point being here that everything is hidden until Abraham is finally tapped out. And when he's tapped out, then the seed is finally recognized. And now the dragon knows where the Messiah is going to come from. And then we see instantly the early pogroms against the Jews. Isn't it funny how right now we are in this whole thing with Gaza and the Israelis, and the anti-Semitism is being ratcheted up through the roof. All the anti-Semites are just, revealing themselves to the world. It's incredible to watch, absolutely incredible to see, calling the Jews this, that, and the other thing. Excuse me, these are God's chosen people. The church is one thing, the Jews are the other. Two separate entities. And once the Jews are regathered back, once Israel is regathered back in their homeland, never again to be removed. So we are witnessing what may be the final, leading up to the final battle, Armageddon.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I believe that, and I believe we have been for a while, but it's ramping up now. We definitely live in prophetic times, and man, if anybody at home is watching this and you've been putting it off, now is the time to get right with the Lord, because we don't know how much time we have left. In the film, you actually make a trip back to Catalina Island. Can you fill us in on what you discovered when you first went there? What was the first trip all about, and then why you returned, and what did you discover this time?
Well, I don't spend a lot of time in the archives, but I do spend time in the archives. I mean, I don't consider myself an academic like Dr. Mike Heiser was. I'm not. I don't have those credentials. I don't have those skills. I have other skills. And I pride myself in being out of a library as much as possible in the field. But then, like right now, I'm reading The Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne, who is an academic. I'm also reading Dr. Heiser's book, The Unseen Realm, because they've done the work. But when you're in the archives, or you get a whiff of something or a scent, and being on the trail, I've got to go to the archives. So I got such a lead from a researcher, Jim Watson, who wrote a book called Mysterious Catalina, and one thing led to the other, and I'm on the phone, and he goes, LA, they found the late Ralph Glidden's cache of records hidden away in the the theater on Avalon, on Catalina. And I went, you're kidding me. He goes, no. So, here's the email for the head director. So I emailed the guy, and the curator was John Borgina. So John passes it up to the president or the director. No, you can't come out and look at the archives. So I write him again, pleading my case. No, can't do it. And one thing leads to another. And Jim Watson goes, they're building a new museum. Maybe offer him a donation. So I do. I go, I will gladly pay you for a hamburger on Tuesday for a hamburger today. No, I basically said, here's $1,000 if I can come in and look at the archives. And that opened the door. So I flew over in a private plane. That really does sound snappy. But a friend of mine is a pilot, and he has a flight school. So I went down to Hawthorne and with Terry Johnson, and Terry goes, okay, it's two sets of controls. I've never flown a plane before. He goes, okay, now you fly, you use the pedals on the floor. If you press the pedal on the left, the plane's going to go to the left. On the right, it's going to go to the right. Wow. So I taxi down the runway, I to the runway, and we've got the headsets on, and up we go. He takes the plane, and we go down the landing strip or the airstrip, and now we're up in the air, Junior Birdman, and we're about halfway across the ocean. It's a very quick flight, and there's two sets of controls. He goes, okay, now take the stick, and this is what you do. And I'm kind of looking at him like, you got to be kidding me. And he goes, no, take the stick, look at the controls here, keep it level, and I fly the plane to Catalina. Wow. It's like, what am I paying you for, buddy? I'm having the time of my life here. So I fly anyway. We land the plane, and I'll end the story by he came back 48 hours later, and I've only been in the plane one time, and this time we're on Catalina, and I took off in the plane. I had the controls, I took the plane off. And he says, okay, get up to speed, then pull back on the stick. And I flew around Catalina Island by myself. I mean,
Wow.
he's got the controls too. But I'm like, I'm banking the plane, flying around Catalina going, whee! I can't even believe it. That was the time of my life. Like I was stuck with a little happy pig, and meow. It just really just a hoot. It's like an aerial go-kart is what it's
That's
like.
awesome.
So anyway, really cool. So I meet Lore Keeper Chuck and Jim Watson in the interior of the island, which nobody gets to go to. They pick me up and we're driving down. There's buffalo there, and it's still the way it was, over 100 years ago when Ralph Gooden was out there doing very primitive archaeological digs. There's probably more skeletons, more stuff that he didn't get, but who knows? You can't do anything anymore. So I get to the museum. I meet John Borgina. John goes, "What do you want to see first?" There's nobody there. The museum's closed down. We're back in the vault. All the museum boxes are kept in a climate-controlled vault. The guy wants to see the pictures. So he brings boxes, museum boxes out with manila folders in the museum boxes. In front of me are 2 tables, white cloth. I've got white gloves on. My camera is set up on a tripod, and I'm looking at the pictures. I find pay dirt within an hour. And look, I have spent days, like at Madison, Wisconsin, days out there rummaging through the folders, and you don't find anything. I found this picture.
Wow.
And I called John Borgina over,
Yeah.
and I go, John, what's wrong with this picture? And he goes, wow, that skeleton looks really big. I go, yeah. So Gary Stearman told me about sending the picture out to researchers who could digitize it, and I did. I found 3 volunteers, and this is the work of my friend Michael Register. And so what we did is, here's the original picture,
Mm-hmm.
and then we take Ralph out and we stand Ralph up.
Uh-huh.
So it's not an exact science, but we know that Ralph was 5'8". Then we take the skeleton and we do the same to him.
Mhm.
We take him out. Sorry, here. We stand him up, and that's what you
Wow.
get.
That's amazing.
And it's actually closer to 9 feet. So when we went back to the island, so we go back to the island, and here's what the museum box looks like, right there.
Oh, okay.
So everything is already cataloged and looked at, and so we go back to the island, to Catalina, and where is it? Oh yeah, here we go. And on the wall of the museum is this.
They cropped out the skeleton.
What's wrong with this picture? And I'm just like, Richard and I, we can't even believe it. And I have my book with me, and so we do this right underneath it.
Yep. It's like if there wasn't anything to hide, they wouldn't have hid it. Wow.
Yeah. So why are you guys doing? So and these are scientists. These are people who are supposed to be telling us the truth. They're not.
Right.
There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world. So we go back to Catalina Island and we film there all this. This is in the film, and we show that this is obviously an out-of-place artifact. This shouldn't be here. You're not supposed to find 9-foot skeletons anywhere, yet we find them everywhere. They're all over, and they're immediately rounded up. And we had a lead on one in an undisclosed location, and I told these people, I said, you can't be doing what you're doing. You can't be blabbing about this. You can't be talking about this. They'll come and get it. Sure enough, they didn't listen, and the powers that be came and confiscated the skeleton. It was sitting in a museum, in a corner of a museum. It was over 8 feet tall. It's gone. It's
And
not
we hear that a lot. The Smithsonian, other places, institutions taking
a
these things.
lot.
And
Yeah.
there was even another proof of scale that you talked about in the film too, because some people might say, well, the skeleton's closer to the camera, it's a perspective problem. But in the skeleton, you can actually see a piece of pottery right next to it, and when you do the measurements, you can confirm
Yeah.
that this thing is actually that big. And you even found a six finger on it, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Let me see if I can. I'll throw that up once again in the book. Folks, if you don't have your copy of On the Trail of Nephilim, please go to lamarzulli.net. Once again, that's lamarzulli.net.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's really mind-boggling when we think about what. I'm gonna go to the index because it's easier that way.
Not a problem. And even for this alone, people should pick up this film because, and only reason I bring this up, so I had a small part in the editing process, and I did some work on that picture, and I blew it up, increased the contrast, and put arrows to where you can see there are six fingers on this thing. There's five fingers, and then there's this obfuscated thumb. So most people think that the fifth finger is just the thumb, but it's not. When you really look at it, you can see there is a sixth digit there. And in the film, I have arrows pointing to everyone. They're all numbered and everything. So for that alone, people should pick up the film. But the film is full of these kinds of proofs.
Yeah, and it's just it's one of my favorite ones. If I could digress, look
Yeah,
at the elongated skull here.
yeah,
You know, is that cranial deformation or something else? And we'll never know because the skeleton is long gone, and we can't look at that. But archaeologists will immediately tell us, "Oh, that's cranial deformation," and we show that. And I can show you the skull behind me. Let me get to the. Hold on, it takes me a while. Okay, here we go. So look right here. We count
yep,
the fingers. Count the fingers.
yep,
So there is no thumb, but the thumb, this is the thumb probably right there
yeah,
because it's really close to where it should be. So it's a six-finger skeleton, and based on the size of the bowl in John Borgina, that's a 9-footer.
yep,
So if we look at this is a one-to-one model made by the late Joe Taylor, what's called the cinnamon skull. And let me just point out some morphological anomalies. The first thing is the orbits right here. The orbits are 25 to 30% larger than a normal skull. So, and the pupillary distance is here. So it's much narrower than a normal human being, which according to our optometrist, they more than likely had night vision. The zygomatic arch incredibly robust. We don't have features like this. These are sutures here. Okay, there should be a sagittal suture that runs like this, just like this suture here, which would divide the two parietal plates. A human being has a suture which runs from here all the way to the back to the occipital plate, but we don't see even a vestige. It's not there. There's not even a trace of it. There is no sagittal suture. And then, of course, what we see, this is the work of our anthropologists on our team. This is the foramen magnum. If it's any further back, it's outside the skull. And you can see how far to the occipital plate, to the rear plate. So it should be right here, the center of a skull. And you can cranial headboard a child all you want, wrap that head in bandages, put it on a board, but you can't move the foramen magnum. That's done in utero. So, and when the child's in the womb, this thing should be here to balance the skull. It's not. It's all the way to the occipital. That's a smoking gun.
yeah.
And this is how we're able. Once we knew this, I can pick up any skull that you show me, and within 10 seconds of examining it, if the foramen magnum is pushed back to the not pushed back, but is all the way to the posterior of the skull, you're looking at a morphological difference, something that happened genetically. And in our film, which is On the Trail, number 6, the complete DNA evidence, we are the only Christian team to ever go down the Paracas and actually take DNA sampling. So, people can say, well, the Nephilim, and it's like, what we found there rewrites history, even though academia won't give us credit. but it does. We were the first people to actually, because Mondo Gonzalez, our archaeologist, went down with me, and Mondo and I did the extractions. Richard filmed it all, Richard Shaw, and Chase Klodsky tagged and bagged everything. And what we discovered when we actually did the DNA testing was that the haplogroups coming from the mitochondrial DNA, coming from the maternal side, the female side of the family, showed a Middle Eastern, Eastern European connection, which is to our hypothesis that these were Nephilim, because they show up in Paracas about 3,500 years ago, certainly an out-of-place artifact that shouldn't be there, yet it's there. It's a smoking gun. It's there. And, in the film, we have archaeologists, anthropologists, surgeons, medical doctors, optometrists, this whole multidiscipline team stating on the record that what we're looking at here is genetic. It's something that's genetic. And, these people are staking their reputation, first of all, for coming on the record stating that this is not normal in any way, shape, or form. This is something that's a genetic aberration, which is the Nephilim. And these people, these entities, I should say, arrived in Paracas, Peru, about 3,500 years ago, roughly, give or take. We're the only, until Brian Forrester had a team from Gaia that went down, we were the only team that we were aware of on the planet that ever went down and actually took samples from the Paracas skulls. UCLA was supposed to have done it, but when Mondo Gonzalez, an archaeologist, a degreed archaeologist, wrote the guy who did the study down in Peru and specifically asked him, how many Paracas skulls did you take DNA samples from? He went dark. He went silent. So isn't it interesting how the academic, and he's more than welcome to come on my program and defend himself with Mondo. Why didn't you answer us? We're not going to mention his name or disparage him in any way, shape, or form, but why didn't you answer just a simple question? How many Paracas skulls did you take samples from? We took 18 skulls we took samples from, and out of that, the preponderance of DNA showed a Middle Eastern connection, which rewrites history. That shouldn't be there. And of course, the academics just were saying, "Oh, it's all contaminated." Blah 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 blah.
Of course.
No, well, that's a straw man argument. You don't know that. You don't know where that is. And if it was a straw, if it was real, if it was all contaminated, then why didn't we get nuclear DNA? We didn't. There was one contamination, and we threw that out immediately because we did my DNA testing and Mondo's DNA testing, and we some of these things we did at 3 different labs. Like this is the baby skull, which we unwrap. It's a 2,000-year-old mummy. We actually unwrapped the mummy. The late Joe Taylor did it. Once again, look at the orbits, and of course, the foramen magnum is all the way to the occipital plate.
Wow.
So it has exactly the same type of genetic aberrations that we see in the upper skull. This is not cranial deformation, cradle headboarding. It's genetic. And, the academics just don't want to hear it because it really throws a monkey wrench. And what's amazing is when they discover these elongated skulls, they found some really big ones in Iran a couple of years back. And I emailed the archaeologist, never got a response, but I said, just turn the thing over. Just turn the skull over. Just give me one. I'll give you $1,000 for a picture. Just turn the skull over so I can see where the foramen magnum. That's all I ask, because that's the smoking gun. And again, that's Rick Woodward, our team's anthropologist. He's the one that figured that out. So Billy for Rick Woodward.
Wow, it's amazing, and people in the field, the modern day archaeologists and all these people, they're so stuck in their groupthink and that they won't accept the possibility.
Groupthink,
yeah, that these, and they're missing out because of it. I mean, I would imagine somebody gets into archaeology to make new discoveries. I mean, that should be the most exciting thing ever. But then when it's there staring them in the face, they miss out on it because of their own blinders. There are so many things we could talk about, and I definitely don't want to give it all away. I do want to ask one more. And just for the folks at home, we are we are just barely scratching the surface of what is in this film. So don't think that because we've been talking for a while that we're covering everything. We're not. We're leaving a lot left undiscussed that you're going to have to get the film to see. But before we close out, I want to ask about one more. What is the Nephilim Lance? I thought this was one of the most fascinating ones that you have in the film.
Yeah, the Nephilim Lance is just let me go to the it's much quicker if they actually use the index. Gee, what a concept. The Nephilim Lance is came to us at a conference a while back, and Bob Shelley was the one that found it in a remote camping area, just sitting there. Someone had found it and left it. So we have no provenance. We don't know exactly where it came from, which really sucks. But we have an idea of that it's very old. It was found again by Bob Shelley, and I'll show you this in just a second. And when we got it, when Bob showed it to us, I went, "Wow, this is a sword!" And immediately Chief Joseph was there, and Chief Joseph said, "No, it's not a sword. Let me just show you what it looks like." There it is. So Bob's in the middle. The chief is to the chief is right there, and then I'm on the end. And the thing weighs about 28 pounds, and Ishbi B'Nob spearhead weighs 28 pounds. It's a bronze artifact. We had it tested, and so we went to the first lab, and the woman was very cordial, really upbeat. The researcher, really a nice lady. We'll take this little piece because we gave them the piece. I'll be able to tell you where the copper's from, all these different criteria. So weeks go by, we don't hear anything. It's supposed to take 2 weeks. So finally, Bob Shelley gets a call. I fly out. It's in the Detroit area. We go to the lab. The nice lady's no longer there. She's there, but she's got a handler. She's got someone, from P&R who's telling her what you can say and what you can't say.
Wow.
So we're at a table in the conference room. I can record, but I can't film. And I'm asking her, well, where is this from? You told us that you could give us dates and this and that and the other. She goes, well, this artifact is no different than any other modern day artifact any other artifact that you would find in modernity. And I'm kind of going like, this is a completely different narrative than what you told us when we brought the sample into you. So I'm at Chuck Missler's conference years ago when Chuck was alive, and I'm lamenting the fact that this is what came down. And if there are any metallurgists out there, please come forward. And I meet this guy, and Mr. Widner, and he comes up, and he volunteers his services. So Chief Joseph now has the lance. We get a little piece of it, and we give it to him, and he does a deep dive on it, and he's finding isotopic ratios. Now they could be found. There are similar isotopic ratios in Michigan, but they're also found in Saudi Arabia. So which is it?
Yeah.
Which is it? And it was cold hammered. I mean, he did a deep dive on it, and so we see that the tin once again comes from the British Isles. So what's that artifact doing there? And what was interesting is Chief Joseph Riverwind stated on the record that the oral tradition of Native Americans talked about the six-fingered red-haired giants that would use these lances. That's why the three of us were lined up and impale three braves and hold the spear up like this.
Wow.
And yell at the top of their lungs. Yeah. And so we call it the Nephilim Lance. We think it's very old. Christian Widner said the same thing. Very old. It's not some modern day artifact. And I find it interesting that the isotopic ratios pointed back to Saudi Arabia, which in some ways is Nephilim central.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing to think that somebody found that, didn't realize what they had, and just kind of left it there for you guys to discover later. Um, we've talked about a lot of out of place artifacts. There's a lot more in the film. I mean, we could talk for 3-4 hours about this easily. But wrapping all this up, what would you most want people at home to take away from our discussion tonight?
Well, but there is a supernatural world that surrounds us, and it's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world. I mean, it has been, and what it does, all my work points back to the veracity of the biblical prophetic narrative. I mean, that's what this whole thing, that our mission statement is, to expose the deception of the prince of the power of the air and to herald the return of the King Jesus. And all of our films do this in some way, shape, or form. And On the Trail of a Nephilim series shows us that there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and it dovetails right back into the biblical prophetic narrative. Hello. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and afterwards. And there's stuff all through the Americas. You don't need to go to Gilgal Raphaim in Israel, and I've been there. We lead tours there. Obviously, our tour to Israel was canceled at the last minute. We were supposed to fly over that Saturday morning when war broke out, and that was the end of it. We didn't fly over. But there's so many sites just here in the Americas alone, which are absolutely mind-boggling when you go there. And you got to sort through what the docents and will tell you, these were built with digging sticks and deer antlers, and yeah, sure they were. You want to go out and try to do that? Let me know how that works out for you. But they never do that, and it's not. Native Americans don't have it in their tradition. So when you go to a place like the Octagon Mound, which is completely out of place artifact, and it encompasses 50 acres, you go there and the Octagon Mound is an unequal octagon. It's based on an 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So the takeaway is this points back to the veracity of the biblical narrative. It shows us that they were here, that they constructed these sites. It shows us that the Most High God interacts at some point and cuts it off. Just like, hey, Abraham, I meant to say this earlier, you're going to be a great nation, but you're going to go down to Egypt for 400 years until the sin of the Amorites comes into its fullness. 400 years, that's where we get the 12 tribes. And then you've got the seed war on the field of battle. You've got the seed of Abraham, where the proto-evangelium, the Messiah, is going to come from. And you got the seed of the dragon, all the Nephilim tribes. And they go at it, and guess who wins? So that's the takeaway.
That's phenomenal. I really want people to pick up this film and all of your other films, all your books. I'm telling you guys at home, the Christmas is coming up. These make great gifts, especially if you have, non-believer relatives who might be interested in sci-fi or ancient aliens or any of this stuff. I've got some myself, and I have done this in the past, and I will continue to do it. I send my non-believing relatives that are interested in this stuff L.A. Marzulli products, and they read them, even if they don't fully buy into the Christian stuff yet, keep them in prayer, but they still read them because they're interesting, and it's something that they're familiar with, and it makes this stuff, it makes the gospel that's really behind this, it opens that door to where maybe they can accept this. So I really want everybody at home to think about that and get this film, get all of LA's films, all of his books. LA, where can people get your films, books, products, and where can they follow you online?
Well, before I say that, I just want to thank you for bringing this film, Out of Place Artifacts, across the finish line.
Oh, my pleasure.
Because the Lord we switched, and it was just sitting there for like 2 years, kind of languishing. And I said, Josh, are you into doing this? And you picked it up and you brought it across the finish line. You did a great job on the edit and putting a bow on it. And thank you so much for your expertise. And it wasn't like, it wasn't a 5-minute job. This thing took hours to put together, and you did a great job, and I thank you for it.
Oh, my pleasure. It was an absolute honor, and I mean, it really, to me, because everybody that follows me and knows my whole background, you are my origin story. Like, you're the reason that I got into this in the first place. You were an answer to my prayer when I got out of New Age, and I had no idea where to go or what to do, and I had never heard of the Nephilim or Genesis 6 and aliens, never heard of that before, but that was a persisting question in my childhood that no church would answer, and God used that that nagging question, and you used you in my life. So for me, I mean, it was just an absolute honor. Absolutely happy to do it, and I was proud to do it, and I thank God for the opportunity, and I'm glad that it came out the way that it did. So yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. You still got to tell people where they can get your stuff.
Yeah, LAMarzulli.net, LAMarzulli.net. Just follow the links to the store, and everything's there. If you want to go and just download, like right now, if you wanted to just watch the whole film, you can go to streaming, like a stream, streaming.lamarzulli.net. Voila, there they all are. You can pay to have, you can instant gratification. You can binge watch them all. You can stream them. But if you're old school, like many of us are, you want the DVDs for your collection. LAMarzulli.net. So you can stream them, or you can watch them, buy the DVDs, LAMarzulli.net, or streaming.lamarzulli.net. There you go.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure to have those links available in the description below. So as we're closing out here, what's next for you? Is there anything that you can reveal? Do you have some interesting projects in the works?
Yeah, we do. We actually, we're finishing up and you're working on What is the Truth? You're working on the final UFO film. Gil's working on the first Roswell film. Gil Zimmerman, my business partner. I'm working on Roswell 2, which is really kind of a fun one because we went to the debris fields.
Awesome.
Yeah, we went to the debris field, and guess what, folks? We went with two guys with metal detectors. I'll just leave it at that. I think you could see by the countenance in my face that I am like a kid in a candy store on Christmas morning. I'm mixing analogies, metaphors, but it was amazing. Yes, we did find something, and yes, we will reveal it soon.
Oh, fantastic. We will definitely have to have you back on for that. Thank you so much, LA, for coming on the show. Again, we'll have to have you back on again soon. It's always a blast talking with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Josh. God bless you, sir.
God bless you too. And thank all of you for joining us on this episode of the Sharpening Report. Until next time, love you all. Take care and God bless. Now, I've always been passionate about bringing truth to the forefront, and now more than ever, our Christian community needs a platform to discuss these pressing issues openly. There's no denying that we live in a time when censorship quickly has become the norm. We've all seen it, voices silenced and crucial topics skirted around, especially when they blend biblical truths with politics or current events. But what if we could actually change that narrative? If not for the world, at least in our community here that we hold dear. And by community, I don't even mean I mean our community here online, you and me and everybody watching. So I mentioned before, I'm teaming up with my good friend Zach Drew. Many of you might remember him from the Jim Bakker Show. Zach's heart for the Lord and the gospel is immense, yet despite his dedication, the limitations of working within a 501c3 for the Zach Drew Show, it's restricted the breadth of his message. Biblical truths and political events are directly relevant to our faith, and we're compelled to avoid discussing these things. And this is by other Christians. This is by Christians within the 501c3 construct. That's where our vision for Daily Renegade comes in. Now, Daily Renegade, it's not just another video streaming service. It's really a movement. It's a subscription-based video streaming platform combined with a vibrant social media community. So imagine being a part of a space where there's absolute freedom to discuss the Bible, politics, and current events without the looming shadow of censorship. And you get one place for everything. So you don't have to do YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and you don't have to do all these. All of it is in one place. And again, without censorship. Our dream is for Daily Renegade to host shows such as The Sharpening Report, which you're watching now, the Zach Drew podcast, which is going to be a new thing we'll be launching, Peck Perspective, which is a show that I've been doing for the Paul Revere Report, but we want to switch it over, and even more enlightening content in the future. So this is more than just entertainment. It's an opportunity for growth, connection, and really spiritual edification, which I think we all need a lot more than we're able to get with our online communities. Because many of you say, you can't talk about this stuff in your home church, so you have to go online or you have to go to conferences. Well, conferences can be expensive, and they're great, but they're expensive and they only happen a couple times a year. You know, you need something that you can go anytime you need it. And that's what we're trying to make for everybody, for all of you, for us, and so we can all have access to that. So one feature that we're really thrilled about is the Renegade Report, and this will be a continually updated newsletter that's seamlessly integrated into Daily Renegade, right into the website. Plus, our envisioned community space will function like a blend of Facebook and Telegram, allowing all members to post, comment, and truly connect with each other and with us. Also, our videos will come with downloadable PDFs that include the show notes for that episode, including content we just could not fit into the show. But, you know, dreams and goals are great, and especially ones of this magnitude, but they require support. So to ensure that we offer the best experience and that this venture stands the test of time, Zach and I need to raise $25,000, and this amount will cover the essential web development costs, marketing, app creation. We are getting apps. We're getting phone apps for iOS and Android, and we're getting a TV app for Roku. We want to develop all that, and vital equipment for our brand new shows. So Zach and I have been blessed with the trust of many within the Christian media company. We are very familiar with Christian media. This is our bread and butter. We know the space. We know the good in it, and we know areas that definitely need to be improved. And we want to bring all of that in. We deeply believe that, and also we both have years and years and years of trust built into that community. So we deeply believe that Daily Renegade is our most effective way to serve Jesus Christ and the church in this age, in these end times that we're living in right now. And this is our chance together to reclaim our voice in a world where it's increasingly under threat. So if you feel led, and pray about it, but if you feel led, please support this endeavor at givesendgo.com/dailyrenegade. And even if you cannot contribute financially, your prayers for this project are invaluable. With faith and unity, we can pave the way for a brighter, uncensored future in Christian media. So that link again is givesendgo.com/dailyrenegade, and you can find it in the description of this video below. If you've tuned into my YouTube shows or anything Daily Renegade related, or even just read the signs of our times, then you know that we live in a season of undeniable economic instability. It is rough. We're all feeling it. Now, while I firmly believe in the promises of the Lord, I also recognize the importance of being responsible stewards of the resources that He has blessed us with. Now, in Revelation 6, the Black Horse prophecy speaks of times when economic hardships will be absolutely rampant. And while some may see the troubling economic indicators today as only coincidence, they are actually potential birth pangs, heralding this more significant Black Horse crisis. Now, I totally believe in the pre-trib rapture, and if you don't, that is totally fine. I'm so glad you're here. We love you, and I this is something that I don't ever fight about. And people here at Daily Renegade don't fight about it either. So if you're mid, pre, wrath, post, that is totally fine. We're all Christians. We all love each other. But I do believe in the pre-trib rapture. But let's not forget, I do not use that as an excuse that we shouldn't be prepared. I'm not one of these, well, I'm not gonna get any like survival food or anything in case the grid goes down because, you know, my hope is in the Lord's promise that we're gonna be out of here before then. Well, let's not forget, let's pump the brakes here. Let's not forget that believers, Christians, still lived through the Great Depression. No rapture saved them from those trying times. There have always been famines, and there have always been times of plenty. And that there's no saying that that's going to go away. So we do need to be prepared. We are in an economic downfall right now, and we need to protect what God has blessed us with. We need to be good stewards with what we have. We need to store up for the drought, for the famine. So our responsibility is not
only to await Christ's return, but to wisely safeguard God's provisions for ourselves and for our children and grandchildren while we are still here, because we do not know when he's returning. So this brings me to a significant point about our current financial system: currency versus real money. Now, while widely used, our dollar is just a currency subject to inflation and the whims of global markets. It's easily manipulated. It's not real money in the way that God-given silver is, things that God gave us. So to illustrate, if you kept $1,000 in cash since the late 1960s, say you took $1,000, you put it under your bed, now inflation would have eroded its purchasing power drastically. You would have $1,000 today, but you won't be able to buy as much with that $1,000 today than you could have back in 1960. Now, here's the difference. If you had invested that $1,000 in silver in the 1960s during that same period, if you said, okay, I got my stack of $100 bills here, I'm going to go buy some silver, and you put that under your bed or in a safe or wherever, today that would be worth $28,000. Amazing. So it retains the purchasing power of the time that it's in. Now, this is the power and stability of actual assets like silver, our God-given precious metals. God gave us this stuff for a reason. God didn't necessarily give us dollar bills, but he gave us silver. He gave us gold. And there's some issues. There's still some issues with gold, just with markets and things. So for me, I think, you can by all means go for gold, but I think silver is, for me, just a little bit more safe and stable. Not anything to do with the metal itself. It's just there's been times in the past where the government has confiscated gold, and it's been a whole ordeal. But there's a protection on silver. Anyway, so how can we make a wise choice in these uncertain times? Well, we can do that by converting your savings, your retirement funds, 401ks, anything that you have saved, your assets, into silver. And there's even a discreet way that if you want, you can get this metal shipped to your doorstep, or you can have it protected in a secure facility provided by the same people supplying you with the silver. And more fascinating is that many don't realize they can convert their IRAs or 401ks into physical silver, and that totally avoids the pitfalls of this volatile fiat system that is vulnerable to hyperinflation and is getting worse by the day. Now, of all the choices available, there's really only one company that I've entrusted with my personal investments in this regard, and it is our brothers and sisters in Christ. This is a Christian-led place, the Christian-led Cornerstone Asset Metals. Now, I've experienced their integrity and expertise firsthand throughout the years, and I believe that when the storms hit our economy, those of us who chose to invest in silver through our Christian brothers and sisters at Cornerstone will stand firm. They treat this as a ministry. While technically on paper, yeah, it's a business, but they treat this as a ministry. They are here for the church. They are here for you. They're here for me. They know what's coming. The economy's collapsing. It's really, we're in really bad shape, and anything that you have, you would be wise to invest in something stable such as silver. So for your sake and for your family's sake, I urge you to visit cornerstoneassetmetals.com. Again, I have worked with these guys for years. They are top notch, and this is why I do not endorse a whole lot of things on this channel. I do get a lot of offers. I do get a lot of people saying, hey, will you promote this product on your show? I get that a lot, and I say no to 99% of them. Because, for one thing, I need a few years to be with a company and work with them to see how they are before I'm going to subject you guys to it. Because if I don't, what if they're scammers? I can't do that to you guys, and I don't want to do it to myself. But, I feel that the Lord has put a responsibility on me towards you guys, and I need to know, at least as best as I can, that the people I'm suggesting, or the companies that I suggest, or the ministries that I suggest are trustworthy. So that's why I don't promote a whole lot of companies or even other ministries or anything like that on the show, outside of like interviewing somebody for a book or something. But when it comes to something this heavy, I just don't do it. But with Cornerstone Asset Metals, I have been working with them for years. If there were any red flags, I firmly believe they would have come up by now. They are really good brothers and sisters in Christ. They have taken care of me really well with when I invest with them. And by the way, we've even worked together so closely that if they wanted to, they could have ripped me off pretty easily. And they are just not that, like, at all. I can't say the same for every other gold and silver company out there because I don't know. This is one I can say for as absolutely sure as I can possibly be on this side of eternity. They are legit. They are absolutely the real thing, and they will treat you right. CornerstoneAssetMetals.com. Click on the link in the description below this video, and you can request your free silver report. So there's no, there's no, you don't have to promise to do anything right away. Just get a free silver report. They're not going to be pushy with you. They're going to talk with you, and they're going to see like what your needs are. They'll help you. And also, please remember to tell them that Josh Peck sent you. This actually does help out a lot because it tells them who of my audience they have and where people just come in just kind of out of nowhere. They really do prefer to work with Christians because they can better help Christians because they are Christians, So tell them that Josh Peck from Daily Renegade sent you. If you're doing it online, there's a little space, a drop-down menu that you can click on that. That does help out a lot because we do work closely together. And that does help me out too. So their financial experts are ready to guide you, and they're not pushy. I promise. These are brothers in Christ. They're not going to push you or anything, but they're ready to guide you on the best protective measures for your savings in these turbulent times. They are truly providing a ministry effort here in these prophetic times of economic collapse. So once again, Cornerstone Asset Metals, check the link below and tell them Josh Peck sent you. Let's be wise, prepared, and above all, trust in the Lord while being responsible stewards of the treasures he has granted us.